The following podcast is sponsored by Luminary Leaders, Sadat and Associates, and Connected Women of Influence. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to this premium episode of Speaker Central. I'm your host, Shelly Harrison. On this episode, we talk about assets are sexy with the legendary Sharon Lechter. Welcome to this episode of Speaker Central, powered by Luminary Leaders, a speaker management and consulting company specializing in representing and supporting professional speakers, thought leaders, authors, military speakers, and experts across the country. I'm your host, Shelly Harrison. Each week, I open the conversation with my guests to unravel their perspective, solutions, and get into their mindset of business. We break down their expertise to give our audience actionable steps and content to apply in their own businesses. Catch all of our episodes on your favorite podcast app. We're also on LinkedIn, Facebook. We're now on iHeartRadio too. So just want to make sure that you subscribe and follow us. And today we have an amazing guest that I've been following for about, I would say, the last 5 years and watched many of her videos, her podcast show, and so many other things that she's been doing in her career. My guest today is Sharon Lechter. And our topic today that we're going to be kind of covering is assets are sexy. And Sharon, I would love to just welcome you to the show, to Speaker Central.
Thank you, Shelly. I'm delighted to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, well, thank you, Sharon. And I know you've got a very busy schedule, so we're lucky to have you on the show today. I'd love to share with our audience a little bit about you if they don't already know who you are.
Well, thank you, Shelly. I'll try and give you the Cliff Notes version because I've obviously been around a long time. So I grew up in a very lower middle class home. Lived in a little house between my mother's beauty shop, my dad's used car lot. We owned rental properties and we had orange groves where we had cash flow from selling oranges every year. So I grew up in this home that I thought everybody understood the power of assets, right? Income producing assets. But yet I hated it because I saw all my other friends or parents were CEOs or military officers. And I go, I want to get the career, the gold watch, retirement, the whole thing. So I was the first generation to go to college, got my degree in accounting, went off to the city of Atlanta, was one of the very first women in public accounting, and loved it. But it was very busy. I was working really long hours. And I said, this is crazy. If I want to work this many hours, I should be working for myself, right? And so I had a client come to me and said, Sharon, we'd love for you to come with us. We're going to buy this company. And so I remember going back to my condo saying pros and cons. And I could argue both sides. Well, I made the decision to leave because my mantra, why not, was started then. And it's still my mantra today. Why not do something different? Why not take the road less traveled? Why not create new opportunities, right? So I made that decision. Happened to be the worst business decision of my life, by the way. But as Napoleon Hill says, out of every adversity comes a seed of an equal or greater benefit. If I had not made that bad decision, I wouldn't have met Michael Lechter. And we just celebrated 40 years of marriage. So,
congratulations. That is amazing. 40 years. Wow.
So when you make a mistake, sometimes you don't get that instant feedback of what the positive piece is. But in this case, my worst business decision became my best life decision. So fast forward a few years, I started a women's magazine, sold that. And then my kids didn't like to read. I started talking children's book industry, helped grow that around the world. And then a few more years later, our oldest son went off to college and got into credit card debt. We didn't even know he had a credit card. And so that was December of 1992. And that's really when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial literacy. And a few years later, I met Robert through my husband. And so Robert Kiyosaki and I became partners. 10 years, we wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad and 14 other books in the company. I was CEO of the company. 2007, I made the decision to leave the company. And sometimes you have to close one door for other doors of opportunity.
For another door to open. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. I got the call from President Bush. I was able to advise two presidents, President Bush and Obama,
Oh
on the
my
topic of
goodness.
financial literacy.
That is
I wouldn't have had that
phenomenal.
opportunity had I stayed at Rich Dad. And then 2008, 2009 financial crisis, I was asked by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help reinvigorate his teachings. And I've had 4 books with the foundation, my company, Pay Your Family First. I've had just an incredible opportunity to be highlighted in things like the Think and Grow Rich Legacy movie. And this earlier in 2020, I was highlighted in the World's Greatest Motivators television show. It's just so humbling and such a huge opportunity to continue carrying the message of helping people take control of their financial lives. And then come to my most recent book, which I'm excited we'll be talking about today, is Exit Rich, which is picked up by Inc. magazine.
Congratulations.
Yes,
wow.
I'm very excited
That
about it.
Yes.
Yeah. And
we just saw the book. You actually have it there.
Yes. And Steve Forbes wrote, so many business owners end up leaving equity on the table. This book will be a gold mine for these entrepreneurs. And my co-author, Michelle Seiler Tucker, is one of the top mergers and acquisitions people, the top female business broker in the country. And then with my 40 years plus experience, the combined experience we bring to the table from a tactics perspective, from Michelle's perspective, and me from a strategy as an investor, as a mentor, and having built my own businesses. We had so much fun writing this book, and it is truly a gold mine.
Yeah. You and I was in the banking industry for, almost 27 years. And I made the decision, after, being in the banking industry for so many years, that I had to do something different. And I did. And that was something where, I really look at you and I think, my goodness, that the success that you've had, all of the opportunities that you said yes to, and I'm sure there were probably some that you said no to. What do you feel is the driving force that kept the momentum for you, Sharon? I mean, all those wonderful things that you've accomplished, throughout the years. And then, of course, during, 2008, 2009, I mean, there were a lot of things that were happening then, but what is that driving force with you?
Well, I'll take you back to when I was a kid, Shelley, because
Okay.
my father would ask me each night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? And he's been gone for 15 years, but I still ask myself that. In fact, this week would be 15 years I lost him.
Same with my mom. I lost her 15 years ago on January 5th.
And I ask myself that all the time, still every night. Have I added value to someone's life today? And being an entrepreneur, you always want to be in creation mode. And when I mentor people, I say, you keep that excitement and creativity by always looking at something new and different, and make sure you bring in the team that can manage the day to day so that you are still in your position of power, your position of highest potential. And so I do a lot of new things because it gives me energy. And I get excited because I see opportunities to meet a lot more people, make new associations. The power of association is something I teach in every interview, every talk I do, because true success in business is through the power of association.
And it really is. And, within our communities that we built, I think the one thing that I've been fascinated with about you is I see you, supporting and working with other speakers and collaboration with them. And, for up and coming speakers, Sharon, you've been speaking for years. You've had some wonderful opportunities, even with the US presidents. That is something, I mean, not many people can say that. But just the collaboration that you have with other speakers, how would you maybe give some advice to an up and coming speaker, because this is Speaker Central. And we, interview a lot of different speakers across the world that are, top speakers and people that are just getting started or they're entrepreneurs. But what would you say would be a good way to get started to, number one, build their influence, and then number two, to collaborate with other speakers?
Right. Well, I think take every opportunity to speak and always ask if there's someone there that is a higher level speaker and you have the opportunity to ask for feedback, but invest in yourself. A lot of I use the graphic of a three-legged stool. A lot of people have a product or a service, right? Their mess, and then they have their ability to speak in front of the group. But in order to create success in your life, you have to have a platform. And that platform is the business around what you speak about. And so my first word of advice with a speaker is, what is your business around what you want to speak about? Is there a back end to what you're doing? Is the speaking an opportunity for you to bring people into a funnel, into a customer journey? What is the business so that you have the viability of speaking? Because if you're just a paid speaker, it's one and done, one and done, one and done. Let's get you into a system where you can create a business that builds valuation in what you do, because that's going to propel you higher even more quickly. And accept positions in nonprofits or where you can have that viability, you can have that the title, which leads to your credibility. But you also, when you're in a nonprofit and you are a director, you're doing something in a nonprofit, you have the opportunity to meet a lot of the big donors who have huge networks and have corporations who need speakers. But you have to earn the right. Now, the inverse of that is today there are a lot of organizations that have large speaking platforms where they are geared to help young and coming speakers. And many of them are pay to play. So you have to pay to speak. But sometimes, that's something that you may need to do. But start with local associations, chambers of commerce, Rotary clubs. Go everywhere you can to offer value to the group and to get that experience, so that when you do get to the point where you can get paid to speak, you have an impressive resume of multiple types of clients. Don't have 18 topics that you speak on. Keep
it simple.
Expert in your field. This is something that happened to me, Shelley, in my, as I get older, I'm an expert in too many things. I can speak to women, which I love to speak to women. I can speak to an entrepreneurial group. I can talk to corporations to their employees about personal finance. And then I can talk to teenagers. And so I have to be very careful about making sure that my communication and wanting to speak to a group, I've done my homework. So I'm approaching them with the best topic for their audience. And that's another thing. I see a lot of young speakers, they have somebody help them create their talk and they don't do their homework. They don't deviate.
They don't own it. They don't own it. And I think that they're not as invested and not as passionate because, like you said, you've got to do the work and just the research and being really clear on your audience.
And that's, we go through a system. Even now, I have a team. When we are asked to speak, they go through a whole checklist of questions so that I know before, and not the night before, not the day of, I know what the audience is and where they've been, who other speakers have been in front of them, and what the facilitator's goal is. But then I also ask who's in the audience. Are they executives? Are they employees? Or is it a blend? Are they all women business owners who are just getting started? Are they seasoned women business owners? Or is it a blend? Because it helps me fine tune my message to make sure, because within the first 30 seconds of every speech, my job is to engage every single person in the room.
30 seconds, right, is what you mentioned.
I will always start with a question. As simple as, how many of you have read Rich Dad Poor Dad? All right. How many of you have not? Well, in doing that, it's a simple question, but physically every person in the room has engaged with me. And throughout my talk, I know a lot of speakers who have they never include the audience. They just regurgitate on them. And that's, I do a lot of speakers training, and all my clients, I give them media training as well, is ask the questions, get the audience engaged. Right?
And the more like you mentioned, you have a checklist, and that is a great tip for our audience, because I think A lot of speakers, they're so busy and they stay, focused on what they're going to be talking about in their presentation, but they don't really put a lot of time into, okay, let's take a look at, having that checklist so that you can get that information up front. So when you do deliver, I mean, it's just going to be that much easier and engaging.
Well, share a story with you that could have been very embarrassing for me.
Oh,
I had the incredible opportunity to go speak at the President's Forum in Europe, right? And CEOs of companies of all over Europe. And it
oh
was
my
an
gosh.
incredible opportunity. I loved it. 2,000 people, 2,500 people.
That's a lot. A
Yes.
lot of people.
And all the information talks about CEOs. Well, luckily I had like a pre-talk interview and I said, so based on the information I've seen, the room are all CEOs or all, leaders, decision makers.
Gosh.
And at that point I found out, no, there's probably 35% of the room are entrepreneurs just getting started. And it's like, okay, that changed my whole talk
Yes,
because
that
it's one
would.
thing I can be zeroed in. If I got a room full of CEOs, it's a whole different talk because they're
Big
responsible
difference.
for a lot of lives, and I can go into the level of the importance of financial education support and training for your employees. That's a very important
Mm.
topic, but not if half the room are entrepreneurs just getting started. And so
Mhm.
it was very important for me to have that face-to-face conversation about making sure I understood how I can best be prepared to move the people in the room.
Yeah. So how did it go then when you were up on stage and you delivered that presentation? I mean, what was the feeling in that you had?
Well, it was wonderful. It was
Mm.
absolutely wonderful because I did speak to the CEOs. I also spoke to the entrepreneurs. And so
Yeah.
everybody was engaged. And, some of those entrepreneurs are going to be CEOs and they've got people that are working
They
with them now.
aspire. Yeah,
Right.
they
So,
aspire to be CEOs.
but it's a
Yeah.
different mindset. Okay. You can
Mhm.
be a CEO and never have been an entrepreneur. So you have a
That's true.
company budget, you have a company salary. So your way you think is different than a entrepreneur who's put everything in their life, all of their money, all of their sweat equity, and they've got a
Yeah.
company that started to be successful, but it's because of their efforts and this like their whole life. Different thought processes. So you have to
Mhm.
make sure when the choice of the words you use are appropriate for the audience that you have. And I
Yeah.
had a fantastic time. They've had me back a couple of times during this online thing. So I think I must have
That's
been good. I ended up getting on the cover of the European Business Magazine as a result of that
Wow.
talk. So
Isn't that amazing? One thing can lead to another. And when you give value and you have, like, for you, you have celebrity status. So I think it's wonderful when you can kind of get into a situation and then have it just, bring other opportunities that you really didn't have to work. I mean, you worked for it, but you really, because of how you were perceived and how much they appreciated, your presentation, that's why those opportunities came.
well, it's the power of association. And I think
Power of association.
it's
Yeah.
also valuing the person asking, valuing the
Yeah.
people that are doing it and making sure that you are truly pouring into their audience and giving value. And that's so
Yeah.
important. And I think, the opportunities, I did not go into this thing expecting to be on the cover of European Business Magazine, but as a result of that and people in the audience and having the opportunity to speak to them. And that's the other thing as a speaker. I've been engaged with in different um, s- seminars where
Yeah.
we come in the back door, we speak, and we leave the back door, right? And I just hate that because I really do like to be available and be out in be able to speak to people after, even as a large group. And it's something that means a lot to me when I can actually see people's eyes and talk to them and see the responses and the reactions they have to what I've said.
Yeah. And that's something I think that a lot of speakers sometimes miss out on, where the power of being able to connect with the audience is huge afterwards, because that just shows, your, just how, um, genuine and humble you are when you're able to take that time and really connect with people outside of the speaking. Once all the activity is done, and whether you're back at your table where you're maybe selling books and doing book signings, I think that's the the best time to be able to connect with people, outside of, really connecting with the audience?
Well, the other thing that I do, which very few speakers do, and I don't do this all the time, but it is something that I try to do, and that is if it is a full day event or even a 2-day event, I will try to be there for as much of the event as possible.
That's
Because
a
if I go
Yep.
early and I can hear the speakers that go before me, then I have inside knowledge of what has already been shared with the audience that I can either build on or
Yes.
sometimes disagree with. But I'm showing continuity on behalf of the event coordinator that I wouldn't be there if I wasn't invested in the audience.
Yeah.
And this happens whether I'm getting paid to speak or whether I'm doing it as a gift to an organization. Sometimes I do it in exchange for donations to charities. But each time I want to, if I can be there to hear other speakers, I learn things, but I
Yeah.
also have the opportunity to add more value in my talk.
Yes. No, I love that you do that because, especially when you have the schedule that you do where, you're just, doing so many different things. And I think that when you can take the time, that just shows, the compassion that you have for other people and, the fact that you want to really be, someone who can give great value to an audience. And like you said, as far as, other speakers that are there, some of them, when they leave, it's, one and done and that's it. And that's why some of them don't last very long, out in the speaking industry.
Well, I agree with that statement. I mean, there are times when travel or other commitments come into play and I can't be there the whole time. So, and I
Well,
don't,
that makes
and I
sense. Yeah.
don't, I'm not trying to be negative to the speakers some of them are getting paid to come in for an hour and they come in, they deliver and they leave. And that's a choice they're making. And
Right.
that's something
That
that,
is true.
there's nothing wrong with that because that's what they're getting paid to do. But I like to be able to have that connection with the audience in a bigger way.
Yeah, no, and I think that, that's wonderful that you do that. Definitely. I know that you've shared in the past as far as we're all CEOs of our lives. And, what inspires you about this idea, Sharon?
Well, we have, as a human race, created this level of entitlement thinking. And
Mhm.
it's not just with kids, it's with people as well. And in the book Outwitting the Devil, which I released in 2011, which was a book that Napoleon Hill wrote back in 1938 that was hidden
Mhm.
away for 73 years, there's
Gosh.
a
Mm.
concept of drifting. And drifting means that you're not using your brain. You're kind of going along with the crowd. You're going with the flow. You're whatever. Somebody asks you where you want to go to dinner, wherever, I don't care, And you're giving up the power of choice. You're giving up the ability to drive your life in a direction you want to. So you become a reactive individual, right? When you
Mhm.
become the CEO of your life, when you are in control and a non-drifter, right? You are in control of your brain. You are the CEO of your life. You're being proactive about what you want in life. And if I can do anything on earth, I want more people to take control of their futures, take control of their
Mhm.
financial lives, take control of what they're doing, and be proactive and become the CEO of their lives.
Yeah, gosh. There's just so many things that, that you have shared so far that I know that our listeners they're just going to really appreciate this because your authenticity, or authenticity, and we'll edit that. Your
I have to,
authenticity.
I have to enter. I have to tell you because the fact that you stumbled over the word, I'm just going to add a little value and a little humor to this.
Okay.
Um, the age that I am, we grew up in a time where you just had to be perfect, and on stage, you can't. Being vulnerable was like a no-no for many, many years. And about 6 or 7 years ago, actually, which your audience may or may not know, 8 years ago, I lost my youngest son,
Yeah.
and I wish that on anyone. And it really put me into a tailspin, as you can
So
probably
sorry to
understand.
hear
And
that,
I lived in
Sharon.
a period of numbness and almost decided to retire. And when
Mm,
I came back and decided not to retire because I got pushback from family and friends, and I think
sure.
my
Oh
son was saying, "Get
gosh.
over it, mom. There's more for you to do." I launched the Play Big movement, which is a private Facebook group, because I wanted to play big again, like I had in Rich Dad and the Talking Book. And I said, I want to share with other people because everybody has the opportunity to play a bigger game. And it's by becoming the CEO of your own life. And it's through that power of association, finding the right people to leverage what you're doing in a much bigger way. And by doing that, you are impacting more people because you're living your legacy.
Absolutely.
And that's the essence of the Play Big movement, is to be number one in your field, live your legacy. It's every heart you touch every day, and creating maximum impact. And so that's the group that I have on Facebook, because I really want to encourage other people to reach for the next level. Find that next mentor that can open doors for you. Because if you're going to work hard, let's have a larger impact.
Yes.
Every one of us has had, particularly this year, have had things that stopped us in our tracks. It could have been a death, a divorce. It could have been a financial setback. It could be an illness. But we're still here, and you are still here for a reason. And what you've been through can be a gift to other people going through it right now. And that's when I decided to get back on track. I had an agent out of New York, and they said, Sharon, you just need to be more vulnerable. Well, I couldn't even say the word. I said, vulnerable, what? And it truly was. It was hysterical because it's like, okay. And I couldn't talk about it on stage for quite a while. And then when I had an interview at a very large speaking gig, I had an interview, and the interviewer, instead of saying what was the worst business mistake that you made or worst thing that's ever happened in business, they asked me, what was the worst thing that's ever happened to you? There's only one answer to that in my life. And so that was the first time I actually shared from stage that I had lost my son.
That must have been so difficult,
It was. And it was about 50
I couldn't even imagine.
And afterwards, I was in the lobby, and I was inundated in a positive way by people just pouring out their hearts, and people who had lost their children. And it really opened up the floodgates for me to understand why it is important to be authentic, why it is important to be vulnerable. And I spent my life training myself to be as perfect as possible. So, trying to free up and show the rough edges a little bit makes life a whole lot easier when you can be authentic.
Yes. And thank you for pointing that out, because that's something I think too, that I'm working on personally. If I'm, talking with someone or, just trying to really communicate it, you don't have to be perfect. I think, there are so many ways that you can communicate and still, have an engaging conversation, or, be up on stage, and, it's okay to, to be vulnerable and to make mistakes, and just acknowledge it, but that's a good point, Sharon. Thank you so much. And, the one video that, and I think it was last year that I watched it, and I think that's where it just really touched me. And when you did talk about your son, and, I have an 18-year-old son, and I mean, that's a parent's worst nightmare. And, not that I want to spend a lot of time on this, because I know you probably, have shared this a lot, and it's not a, subject that's very easy to talk about, but it really had touched me. And I thought, I hope one day to meet you in person. And, here we are one-on-one, on the podcast show on Speaker Central. And I really appreciate, your input and the things that we shared today. I wanted to find out, our topic today is assets are sexy. We're going to kind of change it up a little bit. And as far as, the assets are sexy, let's talk about that. What do you mean by assets are sexy?
Well, financial independence comes from income producing assets, not from a paycheck. It's not what you do for your paycheck that's important, it's what you do with your paycheck. So I have no problem with people being employees. The issue is, when you get paid, what are you doing with your paycheck? Are you throwing it away, spending it frivolously, or are you investing in your future? And from the moment I could talk, I understood the power of assets. That's how, I lived in that little house between my mom's business, beauty shop, my dad's business, and the rental properties. And so I just live and breathe it. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I realized that most people had no clue and no concept. And so it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I started saying assets are sexy, and it kind of caught on. So I've been using it a little bit more as a tagline because, and then I say, the older you get, the sexier they become. Because the one thing that every wealthy individual in the world has in common, no matter where they live and no matter what language they speak, is they're wealthy because they have assets that pay for their lifestyle. You're financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. That means you've created these economic engines called assets, whether it be a rental property, whether it be a business, investments. Okay. Assets are businesses, whether you own the business or invest in the business. All right. It can be paper assets, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. It can be intellectual property, what you know, writing a book, creating a program, right? Doing a mastermind. All of those things create assets that generate revenue.
Right.
And that's a way for you to build that business around your ability to speak about it. When we're talking about my three-legged stool, right? You have your product or service, your book, your program, your ability to communicate it, your ability to move an audience, but you still need the system, the engine around it that creates that economic engine that makes it a business, not a job. A lot of business owners are actually, they own a job. They don't own a business. They have to put the systems in so that successful business they have can become scalable and then sustainable and eventually saleable. But you don't have to sell it. Create it so that it's ready to create generational wealth for your future generations. And that's what the book Exit Rich is all about.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that, which is launching soon, but it's available now.
Yes. Yeah, we're this is kind of a sneak preview. We're making it because of COVID.
This is exciting.
It's not going to be available for delivery like in this form for a couple of months, but I'm making it available to you today by the pre-order, and Shirley has the site exitrichbook.com/buy. You'll get this immediately by electronic form, and then we will mail you the hard copy. And that's because I don't want to hold the information back. Right now, people need to save their businesses. They need to understand how to put that valuation and create it. They need to know how to take it and grow that business. Successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need. We have a few of those right now. And this is 70 years worth of experience of myself and my co-author about how we have built and sold and prospered from thousands of businesses. And I want everybody to have that information. It talks about the importance of, the people in your organization, those power of association, the processes, the business systems, right?
Yes. And I'm so excited that, we will make sure that we have it in the show notes. And I know I'm going to be getting my copy. And I wanted to share a quick story with you because when you were talking about the book, when I was in the banking industry, I used to, and I was an executive. So I was working with businesses of all sizes. And I loved what I did. However, I thought, you know what? I'm kind of capped out, where I can only make so much per month and bonuses or whatnot. And I had a client ask me one time, Shelley, why don't you open up your own business? And I'm thinking, I would never own my own company. Now, mind you, this is back in the 90s. And I thought, fast forward, when I started my company, I thought, oh my gosh, now I know, that this is something that, like you were saying, Sharon, you can create assets, whether it's programs or, and I have diversified so much and I've, connected with so many people. And now, I've been able to help, friends and people that I know
you've taken
to
the
do the
power
same
of association.
thing.
Yeah.
I love
You've taken the power of association and created a system to engage those associations and make it a win-win-win. So a win for your speakers, a win for the clients, and a win for you. So that's the best of all worlds.
Exactly. Well, and I have just one other question that I wanted to ask you because I know we're running out of time, but I would love to have you kind of share with us. I know the Play Big Movement podcast show that you have. I've listened to several of your episodes, and I'm not kidding you. It's like I've got you on my, in my ears and listening, and each and every time I'm taking notes, I'm, writing so much down. And you talk about positive self-talk. And can you kind of share a little bit about that? Because I know there were some great takeaways. And I think that, we'll refer people back to the podcast too, but I'd love for you to kind of share with us about the positive self-talk.
Well, thank you so much, Shelley. Yeah, it is. As I said, growing up as an accountant, right,
Yeah.
and a straight A student trying to be perfect, I kind of poo-pooed the concept of personal development for the first part of my career.
Oh,
And then when I got out into the real world, it's like, wait a minute, people aren't thinking right. People are, they're just making bad decisions. They're having this talk that's telling them that they can't do something. Right.
yeah.
And, it's not just money habits, it's money mindset that holds a lot of people back. And it's not just about money, but certainly that's my field. Think about the lottery winners or the sports stars who make millions of dollars and they lose it and they're living under a bridge. They
Yeah.
never change
Oh,
the
gosh.
mindset. And so much of it, and I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19. I didn't realize the impact it would have on me until much
Yeah.
later. But when I understood how badly people have been educated about money, and that so much of it is not so much what you do in your wallet, it's what you're doing up here.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've never
Yeah.
been trained. And so it's so important for people to say, all right, where is that coming from? As kids, we're saying, money doesn't grow on trees, pinch your pennies, save for a rainy day, we can't afford it. Every one of those statements is negative. So we
Yeah.
grow up negative money, negative money, negative money. No wonder we're afraid of money. No wonder we're afraid we're never going to have enough. And then when we start becoming successful, we're afraid we're going to lose it because we've had that subconscious programming of negativity. And so I started immediately saying, okay, we've got to change our mindset. Instead of saying we can't afford it, which is negative, you want to kind of get under
That
the
is
covers
very,
and
yeah.
turn off the light. Go, change your process, change your words. How can I afford it? Do you feel the difference?
Yes.
How can I afford it?
Yeah.
It opens your mind. It triggers that entrepreneurial spirit. And when you do it to your kids, they can be so creative. If they want something, they can come up with all kinds of ways to be able to afford that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so our power of our words are so important. And the mindset, what you're allowing into your brain, what's in your environment, particularly this year. Turn off the
Oh
news.
my gosh. Yes, especially
Because it's
yesterday.
Yes, it's coming into
Yeah.
your subconscious. It's
Yes.
impacting you, whether you are consciously listening to it or not.
Mhm.
And so, in fact, we haven't talked about it, and this is not a sales pitch, but about 6 months ago, I was so frustrated with how much negativity and sadness there was in the world. I actually launched a daily tip. It's called Sharon's Daily ATM Deposit, abundant
Yes.
tips and
And
mentorship.
I
And it's
just signed
just,
up for that today, by the way.
oh, wonderful. I'm
I'm
so
looking forward to it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shelley. And it's,
Yeah.
it's like a 2 to 3 minute positive message. Some of them are focused on
Oh,
money. Some of them are focused on vision, on, on literally on life. And I always end it the same way, saying, you are fabulous. Say it with me. I am
oh,
fabulous. Yes, you are. Because
yeah.
so many people have such negative messaging that has pulled them down. And I want to lift people up for them to understand that they are in control of their own destiny. And I want to support them in finding the next best chapter of their life.
Yeah, no, I just love that. And you also talked about attributes, coming up with a list of attributes rather than, talk about that negativity, really look and inside at those attributes.
Find what's positive and focus
Yeah.
on every night when you go to bed. Think of 2 or 3 things to be grateful from that day or in your life. Let that be your last thought so that you have positive thoughts before you go to bed. And in the morning, be thankful you have another day. Be thankful that you're
Yeah.
living and you're breathing and you have an opportunity to make a difference that day. And when you go to bed at night, ask yourself if you've added value to someone's life.
Oh, that is just wonderful information, Sharon. And I'm so happy that, that you shared with our audience today and with me. I'm so inspired just by, following you for 5 years, but really having this one-on-one conversation with you. It just really kind of hits home as far as, the capabilities and the empowerment that you provide for other people. And I really encourage our audience to check out Sharon's website. Make sure that you connect with her. Look at the books that she has available, especially, the ones that she's going to be launched. Well, the one that is being launched now, like she had mentioned, you can get it now. And then the hard copy when it actually comes out later. Sharon, I really want to thank you for being on Speaker Central today. It's been wonderful. And, thank you for just giving so much greatness to our audience.
It's been delightful, Shelley. Absolutely lovely. I'm so happy to get to know you. And I want to just thank the audience for investing their time. Again, not spending their time, investing their time to be with us today. And I wish you the best. And I invite everybody to connect with me through my site, SharonLechter.com, or I'm on the Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and now Clubhouse. So wherever.
Oh, Clubhouse. Yes. Clubhouse. Yeah, we're going to add that to the list too.
That's right. That's right.
I know. Well, again, thanks, Sharon. And we are, as far as the podcast show here, we want to thank our audience for tuning in. This will be available on all of your podcast favorites as far as your channels. And you can also view it on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And until next time, we'll catch you later. Thanks again, Sharon.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Hey there, did you enjoy the episode? If you did, subscribe to Speaker Central.